Hi there and welcome. I'm Robert from XOllOX Games. These are my first videos ever that I create and produce and publish, so let's see how they turn out. As you can see behind me, I love playing, but today I want to talk about a game I actually created myself. It's my first one ever, called The Fog Escape to Paradise, and want to explain to you how it works. The game is the first one of XOllOX Games. It is currently a prototype and shall be a Kickstarter within this year. The Fog is a thrilling game with 40 to 90 minutes playing time for 1 to 6 players from 10 years on. The players thereby decide about the fate of villagers of a lonely, beautiful island who are trying in sheer panic to reach their boats at the beach to escape the mysterious and dangerous, rapidly approaching fog. After drafting their own islanders, each player then coordinates his islanders in their struggle on the difficult path across the packed beach with many obstacles towards the rescuing boats by using a various number of available movement options to hopefully reach the boats before the fog reaches them, trying to save as many of them as possible. Enjoy the explanation. Okay, let's just jump right in. What you see here is the board of the fog. You have here the last village, which now has been swallowed by the fog. The fog is coming this direction. You have the beach here with the woods, and here you have the sea and the boats, where the islanders that will be placed here are trying to reach those boats by running over the beach. You have a large possible game and you have a smaller game which is included in this prototype on the larger one. So we will play the smaller one for a 3-player setup, so only those 3 boats will be used. To have it a little bit more visual, there are wood tiles here, so you know where the smaller board ends and where you can move. So what else do we have on the board? We have the rescue point track where the scoring happens. The scoring happens at the end of the game. The rescue points is everywhere where you see those suns, that are the rescue points. We do have the fog track and the fog. This is like kind of a round, and each round, each player has a turn. The fog moves forward until the fog track, the fog marker gets to this spot here, to the coast and to the shore, and the game ends and the scoring starts. You have boat scoring chips. These are for boat areas. Each boat has certain areas, and each are scored individually. You also do have boat bonus reaching points. These you get when you are one of the first to reach a boat. You also have the turn marker, which is essential for the turns and the rounds. So this is the first player, this is the last player, and it shows you how the turns go. We'll come to that later. This is the turn marker. We have movement tracks for each player. So this is each player has in each of its turns 7 action points. These can be displayed here, and to show how many are left in your turn. We have a player aid in English and in German. We have a scoring aid in English and in German, and we have a setup aid. The setup aid for the small one for 3 players says the fog marker needs to be at 1, and each player gets 10 discs. I already put those there. We also have the obstacles here: driftwood, rock and holes, and we have the islanders here. While the different kind of obstacles, it's just a visual thing, there's no feature behind it. You have a lot of different islanders with different features. Generally the whole game has 60 islanders, but the 60 islanders are only played if you play the large board. So the small board usually has 32 islanders. There's a speciality for 3 players, since 32 is not possible to divide by 3. So we had to take out 2 islanders, so it's 30, so each one gets the 10 discs. How do we place the obstacles? There are little numbers here on the side, obstacles blanks. You look at the left number. This one out here is for the large board, this one here is for the small board, and just put the obstacles randomly on the board. There's no one in this row, there's no one in this row, there's one here, one here, one here, one here, 2 here, there are 2 somewhere around here, there's 2 here, and there are 5 here. You also have to place the islanders now. The islanders, it's the same way. You place them, you look how many blanks in a row are there, and just put them. So there are none here. And there is 1 blank in here, so I put that here. So I'll just put up the board very quickly and be back. So this was a quick setup. If you play 4-player games, that's pretty much the same as a 3-player games. You certainly have a 4th player, and therefore you have a different turn board. This one is for 3 players, you would switch it over for the 4-player. The 4-player game is also the turn board for the 2-player game. Since those are identical, the 2 players each play 2 colors individually. The solo game is a little bit different. Please have a look for that on the last page of the manual where that is explained. There are certain options which most I will not explain, but one I would like to explain. There are hourglasses, 60 seconds and 40 seconds. They make it a little more, bring more flavor into it, because it's even more exciting if you feel really this push, the time, because the fork is behind you and the islanders have to reach their boats. So there are 2 phases in the game. Each phase is played 1 time. The first phase is the drafting of the islands. This starts with the last player on the turn board. It's going anti-clockwise, round and round, until all the islanders have been drafted. Then this phase is done. So as an and I would suggest to start the drafting really up front here. It's closer to the boats. You get the extra points, so I would not start very much in the back. So let's say this one, the yellow one takes this one, the red takes this one, the purple one this one, the yellow one take this one here, so and so on. I'll build that up. See you in a minute. Now after the drafting phase, the movement phase comes. The movement phase, certainly you have to now understand the movement phase to actually do the drafting as good as possible, because the drafting phase is already an important part of the game. The movement phase, first let's look at the sequence, how the game flow goes. The movement phase starts with the first player, where the turn marker is. The first player does his turn. He has 7 action points to do so. To move the islanders, and once he is done, the turn marker moves to the next player does his turn, and so on. This repeats itself until each player has done its turn. Once the turn marker moves horizontally, it comes to this gray field which symbolizes the fork marker, which means the fork marker advances 1 step. After that, the next player it's the next player's turn. In this case, or always, it's the same player again. It's not possible to play this game just clockwise or anti-clockwise round, because the last player does have sometimes an advantage, so there's an iteration that everyone is a starting player in a round every once in a while. So this happens on and on. The turn marker moves ahead. Once the turn marker reaches this spot here where the first rescue points are visualized, then each round it is checked whether any of the islanders have been swallowed by the fork. They haven't advanced fast enough. If that is the case, they are simply turned over and are out of the game, since everyone that's ever been swallowed by the fork never returned. So this goes on until the fork marker reaches the shore, the game ends, the scoring starts. Before I come to the movements, just a word concerning the islanders itself. You have all these different islander chips. We have 3 different colors right now, since we are only playing with 3 boats. For each boat you have colored islanders. The number of islanders is all the ones pictured plus 3, so there are some more than actually pictured seats are on there. And the color says or tells you to which boat the islander belongs. The islander can go into any boat he wants, but this one is where he belongs and where he comes from and where he would be most productive. The islander type, we have 5 different kinds of types. This is the different kinds of faces. We have this one here, which is the chief, the elders, the sailors, warriors, and the tribal members. The different types tell you which seats in a boat, which places in a boat an islander can take and which they cannot take. There is an exception. This one here is the cargo room. Anyone can go in there, but on these only chief can go and can take. And the third one is we have the islanders. Each islander has a little icon below. This is a movement icon. I'll come to that later, but it tells you in which movement this islander is special in. About the movements. The main movement is happening here on the beach, which is up here, and then the movement up front here is a little bit different. So in general, each player has 7 movement points to move 1 or more of his islanders during his turn. Saving up of the movement points is not possible, and during the movements no islander may ever end up in an illegal position, like in the woods, in the water, on top of each other here on the beach, or anything similar. So how is the movement on the beach? There are different kinds of movement possible. You can run, swap places, you can push someone, you can squeeze through, jump, or cross over. Except for the running, all of these movements are only possible in this direction or to the side. Running is the only one which is possible also to the back. So if you want to understand the movements more in detail, you need the player aid, which explains in detail the movements. You have a special icon for each possible movement or characteristic, and you have 2 different columns here. The first column tells you all the possible movements any islander can do. How much do they cost? Running costs 1, swapping places costs 3, crossing over an obstacle costs 4. In the second row, this is only for those that actually have this icon on their chip, and then they have like a reduced price because they are really good in it. This means like someone that has, let's have an example, where do you have someone here? This one here has the squeezing through. Squeezing through usually costs 4 points. This one here can do it for 2 points. Okay, So what are the different movement possibilities? The easiest one is running. 1 point for each step. The second one that's possible is swapping places. The one in the back swaps places with the one up front. Then you have the pushing. Up to 2 people you can push straight ahead. So let's say you can either do it straight, but you also can do it in an angle. This one can push those 2 up here. It's only important those 2 have to be pushed in the same direction. You can squeeze through 2 people or obstacles. Let's say this one squeezes through 2 obstacles. Another one could squeeze here through obstacles and obstacle and islander. You have the jumping. The jumping is over another person and it's only straight for here for 4 points. And you can go over obstacles. That's the crossing. That is possible straight, but it's also possible in a curve. And so these are the possible options. Anyone can do movements. And then we have 2 islanders that actually, or kinds of islanders that have some special characteristic. We have someone with a +1, which is endurance, which means if you actively spend 1 action point on this islander or more during your turn, he gets 1 additional point at the end of the turn, so can run 1 step ahead. And you also have an islander with a 3 on it. The 3 means it's an all-rounder. He's in nothing he's really excellent, so nothing for 2 points, but all the things that cost usually 4 points he can do for 3 points. So that's the general movement. Important is that you always have to find or come to an empty spot before you start the next movement in standard version. Except you use the enhanced movement, which is displayed on this side here. If you do an enhanced movement, you actually have the possibility, like this one, if you're in a jam, this one could not go anywhere. You could, it usually would cost him 4, but he can't go there because it's not empty. In this case, you use the 4, you pay another 2 for the enhanced movement, and then you do a run over here for 1, so it's 4 plus 2 plus 1, it's 7 points. And there's an enhanced pushing, then you can, instead of 2, you can push 3 and even angular. So this is everything that is here on the shore, and so that's the way how the islanders advanced and moved towards the boat. On the shore and on the pier it's much easier, the movement. Generally you can simply run, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a little bit more space, so you can run by any other person, it's no problem. If you do so, you bump the other person though, and that means you can move the other person backwards if you want. There is also the possibility that you actually end up on another person, on another islander, which is not possible here. That means you fall on him, and for you that is just regular. For the other person it means though he needs 1 additional action point to move away, because he needs to push the upper one off before the next one, before he takes his action point. So he needs 2 for the first step. If another one moves by, he cannot stop here. 2 is the maximum, and he would push always the upper one. He bumps into the upper one. Okay. The +1, while all the other features are not possible, is actually the endurance works all the way up to the boats. So that is the movement on the shore and the pier. We have, the last thing we do have is the boats. If you want to enter a boat, you can do it always via the planks here. You cannot do it diagonal. It costs 1 if you want to move from one side to the other side. If that's ever necessary, that costs another 2. So to go from here directly there, it's 1 plus 2, it's 2 points. No islander can ever leave a boat, no islander can ever be driven off a boat, and an islander that is in his boat with the right color can never be driven off the spot he is on. This one here could actually be driven off by an islander off this boat if there's no other way on getting in there. But he would not leave the boat, but would go to a free space or to the cargo bay, even if this is already full. The islanders that reach the boats first, not the cargo bay, do get these bonus points until they are all gone. This was the game until we start the scoring when the fork marker is here. The scoring has 5 categories, and those 5 categories are: the first one is you look at the boats in play, and if a player does not have any of his islanders in this boat except the cargo bay, then for this boat the player gets -5 points. The second category is the correct boat. For one player you count all the boats, you count all the discs, the islanders of one player, and multiply it by 3 of those islanders that are in the correct boat. The third is the scoring of these points here for the boat areas. You look at the different boat areas, you count the islanders of a player in this area and multiply it for each of them by this number here. The fourth one is the lost islanders during the run, where the fork reached them and they were turned over. So this one, for example, would bring -7 points. And the last one, the fifth one, is those extra points. You got these extra points for the first one that actually got into the boat, and you collected them, and the total of them is also scored. So the one with the most rescue points wins against the fork and the fellow players. For a 2-player game it's a little bit different. Please have a look at the menu for that. Thank you. Well, so that was the explanation of the fork. I hope everything was understandable. As I said, my first video, I'm not a professional explainer. And if you have any questions, you can contact me under the email address you find at www.XOllOX.com. You can reach me at Facebook, XOllOX Games, or you can play the game at Tabletopia. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye.